r/Askreddit by Reddit and chill. What are some not fun facts? Newborn harp seals have 10 days before they are abandoned by their mother. They need to learn how to swim before the ice melts so that they won't drown. I saw a documentary that covered this. It was amazing. Little dude was scared but finally went in the water. He spent a couple weeks around the same hole in the ice while he learned how to extract air from bubbles trapped under the ice shelf. Then he was off into the world. Whiskey distiller Jack Daniel couldn't remember his safe combination and kicked the safe in frustration. Got an infection in his toe that killed him. Shoebill mothers will only raise one chick. So when 2 eggs are laid, the mother will leave the nest to let them hatch. When those eggs hatch, one is always aggressive and violent, and the other chick is always the timid and sensitive one. The violent one immediately rushes out of the egg to assault the timid one on sight. When the mother comes back to see the aftermath, the timid one limps to its mother for comfort and protection. The mother then takes her time beating the timid one to death with her bill until it's nothing but a mangled lump of meat and bones, and raises the aggressive chick. I saw this in a Netflix documentary on the animals of Africa. David Attenborough actually had to manifest into corporeal form after the end of that particular scene to console the viewer and remind us that nature can be scary as ducks sometimes. Edit. Words end shit. Edit II. For those asking the name of the doc, it was called Africa and was made by BBC back in 2013. I just found out an hour ago that it's no longer on Netflix. Radiotimes.com link. Edit III. Don't know why I'm using Roman numerals. They don't always kill the weak one by beating it. Sometimes they just ignore it and let it die of starvation or dehydration. Which is actually what ends up happening in the documentary scene I mentioned. Yowtaby link. This is even more terrifying if you know what the animals look like. Their beaks are huge and insanely sharp at the tip. If you're attacked by a bear, it won't necessarily try to kill you like other predators would. It just starts eating. To add to this, it also depends on the bear. A little rule of thumb is the following depending on the type. If it's black, fight back. Black bears typically don't want to fight and will often run away in a confrontation. If it's brown, lay down. Grizzlies are the same. Humans don't make a good meal for them. And if they don't see you as a threat, they won't try to actively kill and eat you. If it's white, good night. Polar bears don't give a shit and will eat you. Running, laying down, or trying to fight back won't help you. Best advice is to discard an article of clothing while running in hopes they'll stop to investigate it. There is a whale that has been searching for a mate for the last 5 years. It has been wholly unsuccessful because its voice is a different frequency than other whales. So much so that whales run from it. This is so sad, WTF. If you're going to be murdered, chances are very good you've already met your killer. From an older comment of mine that fits this question. The Challenger astronauts didn't die when the shuttle exploded. The stack actually just broke apart under aerodynamic stress, and the explosion you thought you saw was just the expanding cloud of hydrogen from the external tank burning. The forces involved in the breakup were very survivable. The crew cabin was left intact after it separated from the rest of the orbiter and may not have depressurized. There's evidence to suggest some or all of them were conscious at least part of the way down, if not the entire time. And photography of the disaster shows the cabin falling without spinning in a nose down attitude, meaning no excessive forces to knock them out. The impact with the ocean was what actually killed them. It took 2 minutes and 45 seconds from breakup to impact. It's possible that some or all of them were conscious and aware the whole time. In high school, my science teacher was chosen to be in the Teachers in Space program for the Challenger. She went through the training and got a jumpsuit from NASA and had pictures with the crew and knew them all personally. She wasn't chosen to be aboard the Challenger but witnessed it in person and watched her friends die. She was given a piece of a white panel which she held a torch to during her lecture and then passed it around to show how it reflects heat. There are most likely people that are stranded at sea or in the desert right now that will probably never be found. I wonder about this sometimes. Or how many kidnapping victims there are out there who just want to go home. So sad. Demodex mites live in the pores of your skin and eat your dead skin cells and oils. They also climb out at night and have a gangbang on your face. Worst part, you're not even invited. Thanks. Wasn't planning on sleeping tonight anyway. Up until the 1980s, babies weren't put on painkillers during surgery. It was believed they didn't feel pain. Man. Leaded gasoline and baby torture. What else is there from the mid 20th century that made people go nuts? Cysticercosis is when a tapeworm manages to lodge itself inside your brain, causing big cysts to form in your head, causing headaches and seizures. About 20 years ago my mom caught this disease. We lived in an area where the food wasn't properly cleaned and my parents used to buy it from local markets on dirty alleys. So presumably after she ate some lettuce contaminated with eggs from those markets, she ended up having headaches that wouldn't go away and later found out she had cysticercosis. Even here where we live, Brazilian Northeast, it was a pretty rare disease, so I remember being scared. The cysts had to be removed through surgery and she lost part of her sense of smell, but other than that she's still completely fine today. Only feels pain when it's too cold because of the screws from the surgery. Her swift recovery was a surprise to the doctor and he ended up publishing an article about her treatment in the UK. To this day she doesn't let us eat vegetables in suspicious places and cleans everything like our lives depend on it. There is a genetic disorder that causes your body to replace your muscle tissue with bone over time. Edit. For those who are wondering, it's called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, FOP. And currently there is no cure for it. Also it's a genetic disorder, not a disease. Me apologies for those I confused with it. Edit 2. So I misunderstood. Again, it is a disease. Just not a contagious disease. Is this disease where eventually you sort of freeze? So at some point you have to decide if you want to be sitting or laying for the rest of your life? Male dolphins have been observed to gang rape females. Kill dolphin babies that are not their own so their mums are available again. And for absolutely no reason other than entertainment brutalize porpoise young. Kill dolphin babies that are not their own so their mums are available again. To be fair with them, there's a lot of other animals that do that. The optimal height to hang someone is between 3 and 5 meters. The point of hanging isn't to suffocate the victim. It's to break their neck. Any less than the rope will strangle them to death, and any more they have a chance of being decapitated. That scene at the end of Sherlock Holmes, spoiler, where Lord Blackwood falls off London Bridge and gets hanged by a chain would actually have ripped his head clean off. Edit. Spelling. Banana republics were coined in the book Cabbages and Kings. About small countries based around single exports that were taken advantage of by large corporations. That company taking advantage of them for the book rebranded and is now called Chiquita. Also standard fruit, which became Dole. The Great Molasses Flood, sometimes referred to locally as the Boston Massacre, occurred on the 15th of January, 1919. In the North End neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. 21 people drowned in a wave of hot molasses. Horrible event, but I can't help but to laugh at Boston Massacre. Goats apparently have the most human-like vaginas of all animals. I don't wanna know how you figured that out. Conorak Synthasamphone, who had escaped Jeffrey Dahmer, was killed shortly after he was returned to Jeffrey Dahmer's care by police. Like a fly caught in a spider's web. Once Conorak was unconscious, Dahmer put his twisted plan into action. According to his disposition testimony, he drilled a small hole in the back of Synthasamphone's cranium and injected hydrochloric acid into the frontal lobes of his brain. SMH. There once was a person that had a 300% mortality rate when he did his surgery. io9gizmodo.com link. That one is wild. Over 300 people are believed to have jumped from the World Trade Center on 9/11. One of the falling bodies killed a fireman at the scene. On top of that, there are still over 1,000 victims whose remains have not been found. The youngest girl to ever give birth was 5 years, 7 months, and 21 days old. En Wikipedia.org link. He was raised believing that Medina was his sister, but he found out at age 10 that she was his mother. I can't imagine what that conversation would have sounded like. Rabbits eat their baby as if stressed not. Mice and rats will cull their litter if they don't feel that conditions are good enough to raise their children in. The pyrilla was one of the most barbaric forms of torture ever devised, using electric shocks while the victim was secured to a metal frame to cause unimaginable pain. How about that bullshit? Edit. Let me try and phrase that better. The iron bull where you're trapped inside limited air, stuck in what's possibly a horribly uncomfortable position in a thin crevice, probably broken body parts to get you to fit in there, and then a fire is lit under the bull, suffocating and burning the person alive. That's the worst form of torture I've ever read of. Edit 2. Alphat'sinteresting.com link. Thought you were shoved into a horizontally thin crevice. Whoops. In Australia, there is a plant called the Gympie Gympie, otherwise known as the suicide plant. When touched, it delivers multiple stings with a long-lasting neurotoxin that is so painful that people would rather kill themselves than live through a few days of excruciating pain, and then a further several years of lesser pain, or full reoccurrence in the correct conditions. If the tiny hairs that deliver the stings are not removed, or are buried, the pain will continue for years. The pain, which has been described as feeling like being doused in hot acid and being electrocuted simultaneously, is so bad that people have been driven mad by it. Horses who have been stung by this plant have literally thrown themselves off cliffs. An ex-serviceman named Cyril Bromley is known to have fallen into one of the plants during World War II. Driven mad by it, he had to be strapped to a bed to prevent himself from committing suicide. Another rather unfortunate officer is known to have shot himself in the head after using one of the plant's leaves as toilet paper. Rather than live with the pain in his rear end, he chose to end his life. As the Wikipedia page says, the fruit is edible to humans if the stinging hairs are removed. I can just imagine how that went down. Hey, you know that plant that causes so much pain for the rest of your life that you want to die? I want to eat some of it. A crocodile's stomach can melt down bones due to its powerful gastric juice. People diagnosed with autism, high or low functioning, are 10 times more likely to try to commit suicide than the average neurotypical person. Died on impact is not necessarily a literal term. It can take quite a while to die from blunt force trauma. I feel like there should be a special, explicit version of died on contact and another for died after an agonizingly long wait for rescue. Male octopodes have multiple detachable penises. During mating, they simply rip one off and hand it to the female, who then swims away and, quite literally, ducks herself. Here's my dong. Go duck yourself. Michael Cardamone raped a 15-year-old girl, served 6 years, then got parole. He kidnapped a 49-year-old mother of 2, gagged her, beat her with a hammer, injected battery acid into her, burned her alive, then ran her corpse over with the lady's own car twice. I had to witness this guy go to court to appeal his murder charge for my work experience, and he really gave me the chills. Edit. Here's a link to an article, google.com link/article/11,451,952. In their Greek mythology origins, centaurs are all males and procreate solely by rape of human females. Oh god. That would mean a human female gives birth to a half human, half horse. Oh god. Addiction cost Americans roughly $740 billion. Estimated. Can't put a value on loved ones lost. But yay, not so fun fact. Dolphins rip the heads off fish and use the bodies to masturbate. Oh wow, I never knew dolphins had fish lights. A single tiger killed 434 people in India. It was probably fun for the tiger. Almost all autoimmune diseases include ongoing pain as one of their symptoms. Most people with one autoimmune disease have several more. More women than men get certain autoimmune diseases, but men get them too. It takes an average of 7 years to get to valid diagnosis. In the meantime, the patient may be suffering on and on, feeling hopeless. Patients are often told that it's all in their heads. 93% of humans are dead, and almost all of them were forgotten within 3 generations. Edit. A source. So 7% of humans that ever lived are alive now? That is even scarier. For a very long time, beheading was used as a form of execution because it was believed it resulted in instantaneous death. For quite some time, there was suspicion that this wasn't the case. But many rules and regulations governing the use of cadavers limited doctors from thoroughly investigating enough to challenge the practice. However, at the turn of the 20th century, a French doctor, Bourux, was permitted to make an investigation of a severed head from a criminal named Languille. Immediately after guillotining, he notes his observations. Here is what I was able to note immediately after the decapitation. The eyelids and lips of the decapitated man worked in irregularly rhythmic contractions for about 4 or 6 seconds. I waited several seconds longer. The spasmodic movement ceased. The face relaxed. The lids half closed in the eyeballs, leaving only the white of the conjunctiva visible. Exactly as in the dying whom we have occasion to see every day. It was then that I called in a strong, sharp voice. Languille. I then saw the eyelids slowly lift up. Without any spasmodic contraction, I insist advisedly on this peculiarity, but with an even movement. Quite distinct and normal. Such as happens in everyday life. With people awakened or torn from their thoughts. Next. Languille's eyes very definitely fixed themselves on mine and the pupils focused themselves. I was not, then, dealing with a vague dull look. Without any expression that can be observed any day in dying people to whom one speaks. I was dealing with undeniably living eyes which were looking at me. Of course they were. When you think about it, you've still got a few seconds worth of blood and oxygen swirling around in your head. By cutting it off, you're limiting the lifespan of the brain to however much oxygen is already there. Ducking like and subscribe.